Theresa suddenly screamed in horror, clutching her head as her fingers clawed at her scalp, as if fearing her hair had vanished. She gasped for air, her wide eyes filled with terror, and she repeatedly ran her trembling hands through her locks to ensure they were still there. It all fell out. In my dream, it all fell out, Theresa whispered in panic, her hands shaking uncontrollably. It's okay, Theresa. It was just a nightmare, Martin said, his voice attempting to reassure her, though it was laced with evident worry. The group tried to comfort Theresa, but the haunting images from her dream seemed to have etched themselves into her mind. None of them wanted to admit it, but deep down, they all felt the same unease. The dreams were too vivid, too real. Martin cast a wary glance into the dark expanse before them, where the trees seemed poised to swallow them whole. The memory of branches tightening around his legs and dragging him into icy ground still lingered in his mind. We need to leave. Now, Tristan murmured, his eyes scanning the shadows nervously. He could feel it, something lurking, watching. But just as he stood, the sound of footsteps echoed again, this time alarmingly close. The group froze, holding their breath as their hearts pounded erratically. The footsteps stopped right behind them, sending a shiver down their spines. A chilling sensation of no longer being alone settled over them. Something had found them. Martin turned his head slowly, each movement weighed down by suffocating tension. What he saw wasn't human. A strange figure stood there, faint and dissolving into the darkness, with glowing red eyes that burned like embers in the night. It said nothing, only stood silently and stared at them, its gaze cutting through their minds like a dagger of pure terror. We have to leave, Tristan repeated, but his legs refused to move. The group sat frozen in place, paralyzed by the overwhelming fear closing in around them. Part 8. The Chase and Disappearances. Entities from the Shadows. Everything happened in a blink. Theresa sat by the dying campfire, hugging her knees tightly, her breath labored as though something invisible was pressing against her chest. Harvey sat nearby, watching her anxiously, about to speak, when an icy gust swept through, reigniting the embers in a sudden flare of crimson before extinguishing them completely. A suffocating darkness swallowed the clearing whole. In that instant, Harvey and Theresa were gone. No sound, no sign of struggle or cries for help. Just an empty space where they had been, as though erased from existence. Tristan, Lydia, and Martin stared in shock, their hearts pounding against their rib cages. Harvey, Theresa, Tristan called out, his voice hoarse. No reply came. Only the wind howled through the trees, mocking them with its eerie whispers. Martin snatched up the flashlight, shining it onto the empty ground where their friends had sat. Nothing. Only a thin layer of dust on the muddy forest floor, slick from the night's dew. Their footprints led away from the campsite, but they vanished abruptly at the forest's edge, as though the two had been swallowed whole by the shadows. This can't be. They can't just disappear like that, Lydia muttered, trembling as her wide eyes darted around. Tristan let out a furious shout, slamming his fist into the ground. We have to find them, right now, he yelled, his voice breaking as fear and anger overwhelmed him. But the forest loomed before them like a gaping black maw, ready to devour anyone foolish enough to step inside. Lydia took a step back, shivering as a cold draft drifted out from the trees, carrying an unspoken warning. If we go in, we might not come back. Her voice was shaky, her gaze locked on the shadowy tree line, where the trunks stood like phantoms hidden in the dense fog. Martin didn't wait another second. He bolted into the forest, his footsteps crunching over fallen branches and leaves, the flicker of his flashlight barely penetrating the suffocating darkness. Tristan let out a frustrated roar and grabbed Lydia's hand, pulling her after him as he followed Martin. They plunged into the forest, where Harvey and Theresa's footprints had vanished. Yet the deeper they ventured, the more twisted everything became. The trees seemed to shift and writhe in the darkness, the paths warped into a labyrinth, and the wind howled like the breath of a colossal creature lurking somewhere, waiting for its prey. Neither Tristan nor Lydia dared to say it aloud, but the same horrifying fear echoed in their hearts. Harvey and Theresa had been swallowed by the darkness, and maybe they would be next. The forest's darkness grew increasingly oppressive, heavy like a suffocating mist that enveloped the group. The sound of insects had vanished, replaced by strange whispers echoing from all directions, like a lullaby from something not of this world. Lydia stopped in her tracks. The whispers became clearer, as if calling her name. She turned, shining her flashlight into the surrounding shadows. Nothing but twisted, blackened trees stretched before her, their forms unnaturally elongated in the night. Her eyes stung, her breaths quickened, and for a fleeting moment, she wondered, am I still sane? Suddenly a figure appeared, standing just a few steps away. The woman stood motionless in the darkness, a sinister smile on her face, her eyes hollow and empty like twin voids. Her lips moved silently, as though whispering secrets Lydia couldn't quite hear. Lydia shivered, blinked, and the figure was gone, as if it had never existed. What did I just see? Lydia whispered to herself, her entire body cold as ice. But there was no time to think. A blood-curdling scream erupted ahead. Martin suddenly howled, collapsing to the ground, clutching his head as though battling some invisible force attacking him. "They're clinging to me," he shrieked in terror, his wide eyes twitching as if he were being crushed under an unseen weight. Tristan rushed to his side, trying to pull Martin to his feet. "Martin, get a grip. There's nothing here." Yet no matter how hard Tristan and Lydia stared, they saw nothing around him, only thick, suffocating darkness. Martin writhed violently, as though invisible hands were strangling him. "They're whispering in my head. They want me. Want me." He clawed at his skin until blood seeped out. "They want me dead." Tristan and Lydia stood frozen, helpless, as Martin's panic infected them like a spreading curse, making the air heavier, more terrifying. Abruptly, Martin fell silent. He stood up in one swift, unnaturally smooth motion, too fast, too fluid for someone who had just been hysterical. His eyes were icy, his lips curling into a twisted, malevolent grin that no longer belonged to the Martin they knew. "I've found them," he murmured, his voice guttural and echoing as if it came from the depths of the earth. "And now, it's your turn." Tristan and Lydia recoiled in horror as they realized this was not Martin anymore. Something else had taken over, hiding within their friend, waiting to strike. In that paralyzing moment of terror, Tristan and Lydia instinctively grabbed each other's hands and bolted deeper into the forest, their fear driving them forward, their ragged breaths mixed with the crunch of dry leaves beneath their feet, while the unyielding darkness loomed over them like an endless nightmare. Tree branches clawed at their skin, but they dared not stop. Behind them, Martin, or rather, the thing inhabiting him, followed with slow, deliberate steps, his lifeless eyes gleaming with a chilling, inhuman smile. "Hurry, Lydia!" Tristan shouted, pulling her along. Their pounding footsteps seemed to echo endlessly, as if dozens of unseen creatures were giving chase. Suddenly, a decrepit wooden cabin emerged from the shadowy trees, shrouded in mist. Weak moonlight filtered through its broken roof, casting faint patches of light and shadow within. Lydia and Tristan dashed inside, slamming the creaking wooden door shut behind them, though it did little to make them feel safe. In the dim light, Lydia shivered as she scanned the room. On the walls, blood-red writing became visible, spelling out ominous warnings. "The storyteller will not escape." "What does this mean?" Tristan gasped, his breath ragged as he tried to suppress the panic threatening to overwhelm him. Lydia backed away, wrapping her arms around herself, trembling as a sense of despair engulfed her. "We've fallen into a trap, Tristan," she whispered, her voice so faint it nearly dissolved into the darkness. The stories they had told, they weren't just words. They had awakened something. Tristan's gaze fixed on the blood-scrawled words on the wall, a chilling realization creeping into his mind. The stories have summoned them, and now they want more.